to this session around affordable credit with the EPA as part of our financial inclusion project. Thank you very much for taking the time on this. So my name's Tim Annis. I am head of sales for Bluechain for the UK and Europe, and we're a request to pay technology company. I'm really excited to be part of this financial inclusion project for the EPA. It's a great topic, and in the current environment, it's only ever going to become more and more important. So really keen to understand a bit more about you and about Algebra and how you're contributing.
Tim, thank you very much. Good morning. It's a real pleasure to be here. So my name is Fizel, as you mentioned. I'm the COO and co-founder of Algebra. Algebra is a global digital Islamic finance ecosystem, and we're here to serve some of the most underserved and underrepresented and unbanked communities in the UK, in Europe, and across the globe as well.
Can you give me a little bit more insight into what that means? You've given a very high-level summary there of Algebra. It'd be great to understand kind of where you guys came from and what faith-based banking is really talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I don't think it has anything necessarily to do with kind of your ethnicity or your background or anything. I think actually it's a reflection on the financial system as a whole, which of course, and I'm conscious that the topic of the interview is affordable credit. Of course, credit and finance has to always be affordable. But as we democratize finance, it also has to fit in with your values and your lifestyle and the way in which you want to live your life. Because fundamentally, money isn't necessarily an end in itself. It is a means to an end for us to be able to live our lives in the way that we feel is best and to have the choice to do that. And so one of the ways in which we believe some communities in the UK, in Europe, and across the globe would want to do that is to bank in accordance with their faith. In the same way that somebody would want to bank with a sustainable bank, or a bank which focuses particularly on the environment. Algebra is focused on communities that want to bank in accordance with their faith, and specifically within the Muslim faith, but fundamentally as an ESG offering. So one which is also environmentally friendly, one which sees its offering or its position as a member of the community rather than just merely a profit-making institution.
So could you just expand a little bit about what the impact therefore is to people who have a desire for faith-based banking, or where this impacts it? What's the impact to them of the current financial system?
So the current financial system does not adequately cater to the needs of individuals who wish to bank in accordance with their faith-based requirements. So what you will find is either people are underusing financial services, and if we bear in mind, financial services actually help us to all live better lives. We want to buy something on credit card and then pay it off over a monthly basis. It means that we get our fridge 6 months earlier than we might otherwise. That goes to your quality of life. If you need to fix your car in an emergency, or if you need an emergency loan, that goes to quality of life. And if you refuse to get loans because of your faith, because what's being provided out there at the moment doesn't fit in with your faith-based requirements, that affects your quality of life on a day-to-day basis. Now, a lot of people do go out and get those loans. However, they don't necessarily feel great about it, and they will only do it in a very limited way. And they will limit their use of financial services only to those which are absolutely necessary. So it is important for us to continue building towards a financial system which actually caters towards not just people's financial requirements, because it's not one-dimensional in that way. People are not one-dimensional. They don't only focus about the money. In the same way that you would pay slightly more to go and bank or pay your bills in a way which is environmentally friendly, there are also people who want to, do you see how your values feed into that decision? It's not just about the money of it.
What are some of the other areas that rolls into then from a finance perspective?
For example, some people would want to get a first mortgage, or get onto the housing ladder, which, as we know, kind of impacts not only your quality of life, but also your wealth, and for many people, actually getting a mortgage as a retirement plan. And yet, if you wanted to get a mortgage today within the Islamic finance kind of sector, it's quite difficult for most people to get that. Because one, it's not affordable in the same way that it can be affordable to get a conventional mortgage. And because it's not affordable, people do end up getting the conventional mortgage, but it means that they're getting a mortgage which, again, does not align with their values and their faith. And the question that we all have to ask ourselves is, why are we forcing people to choose between their values and their faith, or being able to avail themselves of exactly the same services that everybody else is entitled to? And if you can't avail yourselves of the services that everybody else is entitled to, then what are we saying about the society and the world in which we're living? You want everybody to be on an equal footing, and to be able to, obviously, within sort of an acceptable spectrum, but to live within the values that they want to abide by. What the interesting thing is why Sharia compliant finance operates in the way that it does, and it operates in the way that it does and on the principles that it does, because it seeks to create a more ethical form of financing, where the equation between the bank and the banked is more balanced. That's what it's fundamentally trying to do, right? So, for example, if you give out a loan as an Islamic bank, there has to be an element of risk-reward sharing. And what this means is that if the individual cannot pay back their loan entirely, the bank is actually not entitled to ask for the full amount of the loan back. There has to be an element of actually sharing in the risk of that individual, right? At the same time, if that individual does really, really well in their business that they've taken out a loan on, the bank can also share in the reward of that, although obviously the vast majority of that goes to the individual. There's also a prohibition on interest, for example, because in Islamic finance, it's actually quite a capitalist thing, right? Sharia finance. So interest does two things. One, interest only goes from people who have money to people who don't have money to people who have money, because it's the poor who borrow and it's the wealthy who lend, right? So over time, it's pulling money away from, and without necessarily any value creation, because you might borrow money to make money and then you can pay off the interest. But interest in and of itself is not a value creating mechanism. So these are the sorts of principles. Transparency of fees, for example. This is another thing, right? So if, for example, you took out a loan or a credit card or a mortgage, fees have to be totally transparent to the individual and upfront with the individual as well. And if you ask most people, how does your credit card interest work? Or tell me exactly how your mortgage works, I would suspect that most people would not be able to tell you exactly how it works. Whereas you can't do that in a Sharia compliant product. So it's not just about affordability of credit, it's about accessibility. And accessibility isn't just a case of, is there a bank down the high street that I can actually go to? It's more a case of, do I understand what I'm getting myself into well enough to actually commit myself to this?
What are the things that you think in the broader market, taking into account your own kind of angle, but also the broader financial market, is, how do you think financial inclusion can change to support the underbanked? Not just faith-based underbanked, but the broader topic of being unbanked, or underbanked.
But I think, as I mentioned before, I think the opacity of the existing banking, not all of them, by the way, not all of them, but I think a lot of banks can seem to be very opaque, very intimidating, and unclear. And I think that extends from everything from, kind of exactly how a mortgage works or exactly how a credit card works, particularly in the Islamic finance space, by the way. But also, to making sure that you've got, really good customer service, people that you can always speak to down the other end of the phone, and that you're not just like kind of putting your money with a faceless organization and you're not exactly sure where your money's going or what's happening with your money. I think people now have moved into an era where they really want to trust their banks. And if you can engender that trust by being, first of all, as I mentioned before, kind of clear, not just transparent, but actually clear about what your product is and how much you're charging your customer. But also, if a bank can adopt a position or a role of actually being a member of its own community and actually doing good within its own community, as actually Islamic banking tries to do, then I think that you will engender that trust that will encourage people to actually approach their bank and say, actually, I need a loan for this, I need a loan for that, I need a loan for whatever, and thereby improve their quality of life and increase the accessibility of credit. Because I think that actually a lot of people can get credit. I think it is possible for people to get credit. But the question is, do people actually want to go out and do it? Or do they feel like that they're being taken advantage of, or that there are loan sharks out there, but masquerading as kind of reputable institutions? I think that trust point is quite a major thing that probably the entire industry can work towards. And this is actually something that we have been seeing a lot recently, this kind of rise of the lifestyle bank, or a bank that kind of fits in with your values. And we're not the only ones out there who are targeting values and not just kind of within the Sharia compliance space, but target, there are lots and lots of banks out there which now target people or try to serve a community based on their lifestyle or their values. Whether you're a freelancer or whether you are, as I mentioned, environmentally conscious or whatever it is, there are lots and lots of similar banks out there. And I think that can only be seen as a good thing.
Sounds fantastic. Great stuff. Thank you very much for your time, and look forward to hearing all about what Algebra does in the news as we go forward in 2021.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Tim. Much appreciated.